What's going on, guys? I've been getting a lot of questions about a technique called drop shotting. I know people around here know a lot about it. We've been using it for a while now, but in a lot of places people really haven't started using it yet or even really understand how to. So I figured I'd go ahead and make a short video on just the basics of it. I'll go ahead and start off with how the rigging goes. It's not very complicated. I have one right here already set up. This is kind of an offshoot of it that that has been started to be called power shotting. So what I have here is, instead of a small little hook nose rigging a small tiny little bait, which works well also, especially on pressured fish. This is a 2-0 extra wide gap hook, if you can see that on here. And what I have rigged on here, this is a Power Team Lures JP Shad. This is the larger one. I think it's 4.8 inches. Yeah, 4.8 inches, and it's this is in Slam Shad. Really cool color. Very natural. And the best thing about these things is, even on this heavy hook, this has a neutral buoyancy without being covered in salt. So when I'm fishing with this thing's going to stand straight out like this in the water, and this tail is just going to shimmy. It's pretty cool. But besides that, to put the hook on the line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it on with the polymer knot. But what I'm going to do is, instead of having a very short tag end, I'm going to leave, you know, however much you plan on, however high you want the lure to be above the bottom. Make sure you have at least that much line as a tag end. I'll pull probably 2 feet through just to make sure, because it's, you know, you can cut the line off at the end afterwards. So what I have is the hook right here is tied with the polymer knot, and then what I'll do is, with the tag end, go back up through the top of the hook and go through the hole and back out the bottom. And what that does is it makes it stand straight out. A little easier in the water with this this lure on here. It's a little heavier, but it'll stand straight out, and when this pulls down, it'll actually twist the knot up and it'll hold it. So I have probably about 18 inches of leader here, and on the bottom, all it is a drop shot weight. I like the Slim Shots. This is a Power Team Lures Slim Shot too. They have the clips on the top. You just put the line in it, pull it up tight, and then I'll just do a quick, easy overhand knot just so they won't slide off. But it's pretty simple. Power Team Lures makes these Slim Shots. They call them lean drops. I think you get 8 in a package, so they wind up being pretty cheap. And I know a lot of people are, you know, using the tungsten. I use tungsten for everything for the most part, except for drop shotting, because I don't really see any benefit to it. If it's a little bit bigger, that's fine. And these lean drops, they're pretty slim anyway. So if I am pitching this in grass, which yes I do, pitch it in the heavy grass, it'll slide right through it anyway. These are 1/4 ounce. They're not that big. I do have tungsten. I don't use them that often, because if I lose this, I'm not going to cry nearly as much as if I lose a tungsten one. So with power shotting, you know, you can fish this actually pretty quickly. I'll cast this out, and I could relatively quickly hop it across the bottom, drag it across the bottom, and all they're going to see is this thing right here going across. It's different than what they're used to, and bass feed up. So unless they're looking for crawfish, this just looks like a regular small shad going across on top of them, and they're going to go up and they're going to hit it, kind of like a jerkbait would. They see it above them, they'll go up and they'll hit it. So I actually really like this technique if I can get away with it. If the bass are really pressured or finicky, that's when you go down to the smaller rigs. I'll put this one away. That's where I have come to rely on. You can use any kind of drop shot hook. It's really nothing but a small little hook. I really like these. I'll get one out of my box here. VMC makes these. They're called spin shots. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I'll put my hand behind it so you can see what's going on. But it has a snap swivel basically through the eye of it. So what you can do is you tie your main line to the top. I'll grab one. I have one rigged up already. This is a 1.0. This is usually what I use, or not a 1.0. This is a size 1, and I'll use a size 2 also. But for the most part, I'll go with the size 1 because even though it's a small hook, it'll still get a good bite in that fish's mouth. But this is for a finesse presentation, more or less. So what winds up happening with these, the main line, I use a polymer knot, just like before, on just the top of the swivel. And then on the bottom, just tie a little section, however much line you want, to just a separate piece of line. And on the bottom again is the lean drop weight. Pretty simple. So what's nice about this is, and this is the reason why I use spin shots for my, these are for basically nose hook baits. They're not going to be weedless. But what happens is, if you notice, that hook is straight up and down. It doesn't lean off to the side whatsoever. So I can take this and I can pitch this in really heavy grass. Bass aren't used to seeing, if they are used to seeing a drop shot, they're not used to seeing it in the grass beds. So what happens is this goes through and then it doesn't touch the bottom. It's different than what they've seen. Now it'll go through because the hook's facing up. When you bring it back up through, you're going to catch every weed in there. So it's a lot of work, but when this is down in front of the fish's face, it's not going to have weeds on it. So that's really what matters. Like I said, that's really when it gets down to the pressured fish, that'll get them. One of my favorite things to do with this is actually use a 6-stick, again from Power Team Lures. These things are awesome. They're probably one of the most popular baits that I could think of. In the name, it says it. It's a stick style bait. This is Okeechobee Crawl, which is just a pretty cool looking color, so I grabbed it. What's really neat about these is they have a square core, which you can't see in the, you won't be able to see it in the camera, but they have a square core, and then the ridges are completely round. So what happens is if you hook this on a diagonal, the square is kind of like a diamond, like this, and it'll cause it to it shimmies really nicely going down. The other thing that's nice about these is they're very very soft. They have a lot of action, but it's crazy because usually when baits get like that, they're one fish baits, and I'll use one of these for the most part all day. Maybe with smallies, it might last you half a dozen fish, but if you're using this for the most part, it's going to last you for a while. So what I'll do with this is, I mean, these could be nose hooked also, but my favorite way to fish this, and if you ever try it, put it outside in the water or on the side of the boat and just shake it a little bit. And what you'll notice is these things just shake. And what it looks like is, it really looks like a dying shad. So it may just be a stick of plastic, but it looks more like a dying shad than pretty much anything I've ever seen. So I'll hook this right through the center part, wacky style, like that. So now it's on a drop shot, but it's wacky. So what happens is, first of all, it's going to drop down just like it would when you're fishing it wacky with the weight on it, on the hook. But when it hits the bottom, it's going to stay above. It's going to stay above the bottom. And if you shake it just a little bit, that thing right there looks so alive. This really works pretty well for me. This has saved my hide a few times last year in a couple tournaments. This is my first time with Okeechobee Crawl. I'll tell you, my favorite color right now is called Kitchen Sink. And really, it's basically a green pumpkin color, and it has the kitchen sink of all flake in it. So this thing, it's very subtle, yet it has a nice glitter to it too. So it has a couple extra colors in it. It's worked out pretty well for me, this color in particular. Now, this is the nose hook, right? So there's another bait. There's a couple other baits that work with this too. So I showed you the 4.8 hammer shad a minute ago, but there's also a 3.6 hammer shad, and I'll show you. Let's see. I showed you slam shad. This is dinner bell. This is a pretty neat color too. So this is a smaller. This is really good for smallmouth, but it also works pretty well when the bass get a little bit tight-lipped because it's just such a smaller, less intrusive bait. So then I'll take this same hook right here and I'll nose hook it right in the front like that. Now with this VMC hook on there like that, it's going to stand straight out, and like I said, all Power Team Lures baits, they have that neutral buoyancy. So it's the craziest thing. You put this in the boat in the water next to the boat, and it will sit straight out like this. Every time the rod twitches just a hair, this tail dances. Try it, it's pretty awesome. Now when they get really finicky, there's a tickler, which is about as finessey as it gets. It's a straight tail worm. I'll grab, let's see, this is a cool color. You know, obviously you got the green pumpkins and you got the kitchen sink and stuff, but I'll grab this one out because it's pretty neat. This is called Melon Mix. So what you can't see is it's straight, right? So this is the 5-inch. They also have a 7-inch that works pretty well too. And I've actually used the 7-inch on a drop shot hook, but instead of having it nose hooked, I would rig it with a Texas like a 2.0 or probably a straight shank hook instead of the wide gap like I did on the other hammer shad. But this guy right here, it has a flat bottom to it. I don't know if you can see it. The bottom's flat, so it sticks straight out. Same thing with the neutral buoyancy. The top has these nice little ridges that you probably can't see. Maybe you can. So I'm going to take this right to the bottom. Makes it so simple. Right to the top. And now it's this thing dances almost the same as the 6-stick does, with it being wacky, but it's a little more of a finesse style thing. I do use it. I've used it. It's just, I mean, they all catch fish. But these are the finesse, really finessey stuff. I get this kind of stuff out not having a great day in the first place. But those are the days that this kind of stuff really pays off to know. So on a regular day, I'll do the power shotting just because I can cover some water with that. It's becoming a lot more popular. You don't have to use the light line like a lot of guys. Like this finessey one I have here on a spinning rod here, real light setup. But that that power shotting, you'll notice I have it on a bait casting rod with a heavier weight on it. Cast it out there farther, it gets to the bottom quicker, and I can drag it along pretty fast. I'll show you. This is the 7-inch tickler. This is in kitchen sink too. So this one instead of having straight tail like the 5-inch, it actually has a little bulb on the end, and it catches water really nice. That causes this tail to shake pretty good when it'll stand out straight, but when you shake it, it will give it a little bit more of kind of the whole bait will shake because that kind of anchors the back of it. Same thing, flat bottom, the ridges on the top. So these things are pretty neat. But back to it again. My favorite has to be the 6-stick. You can rig that thing wacky. This is a good color in dark water. Anybody would know. Black, blue flake. put that on that little 1/0 hook, and I mean, just because the hook is little doesn't mean it's not going to hook big fish. But if you're worried about the size 1, get a size 2. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. It's really not that hard of a technique to get. It's more or less just having somebody show you what to do. I don't have the ability to show you anything on the water because it's like 20 degrees outside, but I mean, it's fairly simple. You throw it out there. I like to pitch it because I find it when if you cast it out sideways, the weight being on the end, it helicopters a little bit. So I can usually pitch it farther. And I'll use this, I'll pitch this to stumps, I'll pitch it to trees. Especially this power shot, because if you look at this, I mean, that's not going to get hung up in anything. The worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to get wrapped up, the weight's going to get wrapped up, and you're going to lose the weight. That's not that big of a deal. They're really not that expensive, especially if you buy them. The way Power Team Lures does them, they put the lead weights in the bulk package pretty much. So it's not that big of a deal. You snap another one right on there, and you're good to go. Worst case scenario, you got to retie the hook on there too, because it breaks off too close to the hook or something. But I'll pitch this right in there. I'll shake it real quick, grab it out, throw it to the next place. Or if I'm fishing on a ledge, or say a grass edge, I'm sitting in the grass. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll sit on the grass side and I'll cast out to the outside edge of the grass, away from the clean bottom, and I'll drag it back to the grass. That actually works a lot of times too if you have a place where there's largemouth and smallmouth, because the smallmouth, they usually be off the ledge where the grass is on, and when this thing is headed back to that grass, they don't want it. They don't want to let it get back into the grass. Same thing with largemouth. They'll be sitting there at the edge of the grass looking out. If this bait fish gets out of that unprotected area and gets into the grass, they're gonna have a hard time getting it. So it's an easy meal for them out in the open. They'll come out and they'll hit it. So that works pretty well, and this is pretty weedless. But if it gets down to it, get that nose rig out. The VMC spin shot hooks, they work pretty good for that. You can use the regular ones, like I said, but it tilts to the side. Doesn't really affect it too bad. It's a very small amount of tilt, but what happens is that little bit of canter to the side will make it grab grass. And on the way down, it'll hit that grass and it'll pull some with it, and the whole cast is worthless. You sit there and you're working the bait, and the whole time it's got a big old wad of grass sitting right there on the hook. So you put that little spin shot on there, it goes down straight, and you're fishing with, confidently that you're fishing, something that's actually able to catch a fish. You're not wasting your time. Wasted cast is wasted time, especially in a tournament. How many casts you waste could be that cost you the whole day. So any questions, feel free to message me, and I'm happy to help you out. If you want to check out any of these Power Team lures, you can ask me. I have a coupon code because I love them so much. I went ahead and got sponsored by them. So they're pretty awesome. I really highly suggest them. I can answer any questions about them too. So thanks for watching, and like I said, feel free to message me any questions you might have.